Tales of magical scarecrows, tales of scared princesses, tales of helpful broonies, all Scottish of course. Yes, it's two collection of short stories from the master storyteller Duncan Williamson. Hello, welcome to the Bottled Imp.
Exploring the realms of fantasy!
My name is Ken Boyter, and today we're going to be looking at two collections of short stories. One is The Flight of the Golden Bird, and the other one is The Coming of the Unicorn. I'm going to gloss over that title straight away. Now, I found out about these books because I was recently up at the Edinburgh Fringe, and I happened to see a storyteller. And the storyteller's name was, if I can pronounce it right, Calum Lykan. Hopefully, Calum, if you're watching, I've pronounced your surname correctly. And he was brilliant. He was a really good storyteller, and he was telling old Scottish traditional tales. Really, engrossing, enchanting, intriguing. And I was actually really surprised that all the audience were adults, no kids. So it was good to see that I wasn't alone in liking old fairy tales and traditional folk tales. And I happened to chat to him afterwards, and he's off on a world tour of being a storyteller, which I thought was fantastic. There's a bookshop at this storytelling centre in the middle of Edinburgh, and I thought I'd check it out. And I happened to see these two books. Calum was walking past. I asked him if he'd read these, and he totally recommended them. They're by Duncan Williamson, and yeah, he said, buy them, read them, you'll love them. So, did I? Let's find out. So, what are the two collections all about of short stories? As I say, Duncan Williamson, I talked to this Calum guy, and he was basically saying that Duncan Williamson was a traveller. And in the introduction, there's nice little introductions to each of the collections, telling you all about Duncan Williamson. And they must have interviewed him because they quote him quite a lot in it. They do like a nice little sort of, quote from him, lots of quotes from him. And he basically was a traveller of 60 years. He was born into the travelling community up in Scotland. And their family used to just go around doing odd jobs for various, villages and towns and that kind of thing. And he was child number 7 of 17. Imagine that, 17 children. And he said that they were never very rich, as you can imagine. So there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of hunger, there was a lot of, trudging around day to day. It's sort of misery in some respects. But then in other respects, he said the storytelling was the highlight of the day. Getting food on the campfire, all gathering around the campfire and just listening to people telling stories. And they said it was, quite vital in some respects because it was a way of passing down knowledge. They said that mum and dad, couldn't read or write, and so therefore this was a good way, as I say, of passing knowledge from generation to generation. And I love that idea of just that passing down these old folk tales, these old traditional stories from generation to generation. I can imagine each telling, or each generation, that something new gets added to it, and I love that about it because it's a very creative way of storytelling. And so he travelled around. He then became a traveller himself when he grew up. He travelled on foot to begin with, and then he got a horse and cart, and then when horse and carts were no longer wanted on the roads, he got an old van. And he just travelled around collecting stories. And there are 18 stories in each collection. And there's lots of themes in the collection, as you can imagine. So each story, sometimes it is only 2 pages long, so they're really short. Sometimes they're 10, maybe 15 pages long. So there's none that are too long. There's none that you really think, okay, I really want this, short story to end. And there's loads of different themes going on, but I won't obviously go into all the themes. But the underlying theme of all of them is about how to be a good person, how to be a kind person, and that good and kind people, on the whole, are rewarded for it. Yes, bad things can happen to that person, but if you kind of, have a heart of gold in life, you should actually be rewarded for it. So that was the overarching impression and theme that I got from these. And the main thing as well, the other real distinctive thing was the voice. The way that it's written, it's as though Duncan is actually telling you the story. So there's lots of, sort of slang, colloquialisms, and loads of Scottish words that are, they've got a glossary in the back of them, so you look them up and you work out. And there's some really nice phrases, really, Scottish sounding phrases, nice lilt to it, a lovely tone, a warm, intimate tone to them. And you can really imagine that he's there telling you the stories. You can imagine the campfire. And so, it does say on the cover that they're actually for children, and I can see why, because, as I say, good morality, so obviously as a parent you'd want your kids, to have morals, plus if you're reading them out loud to your children, that they've been written in a way so it sounds like you're not making it up, but you're not reading it. It's got that real intimacy. So obviously if you're a child and you're tucked up in bed and you're listening to your parent telling a story that sounds like it's just coming from their brain rather than being read is really powerful. I did Camp America when I was 20 odd, and I used to tell stories. I used to make them up, tales from the British Isles I used to call them, and I used to have magic in them and dragons and little goblins and imps and that kind of thing. And because I made them up, I didn't read them from books. A lot of the 7 to 9 year olds used to really genuinely believe that things like that happened. If there is anybody of that age that went to the camp that are watching this, yes, they really did happen still, honest. Anyway, so that I love that intimacy, that the way that the books are written give you. Fantastic. As for the fantasy elements, yes, the pages are dripping full of fantasy. There are magical scarecrows, there are tramps that have magic, there are hen wives, which are kind of like witch-like creatures, there's little imp type creatures, the fairy folk, there are talking animals, death crops up, and also there's a couple of them are religious in flavour. They do have a sort of Christian feel to them, and it's not, the nice thing about it, it's all gently done. There's no forcing this message down your throat, and that's again the subtlety and the beauty of these stories, is that as a kid you will think, yeah, there's a message in there somewhere, and I remember as a kid reading these types of stories, and that message, if you think about it over the years, sort of starts to sink in and it goes into your subconscious. Now, I talked to the storyteller who recommended these books to me, Calum, and he said that, I mentioned The Storyteller by Jim Henson. We've done a review on that, check that out. TV programme of the late 80s. Really influential on me and my love of literature and my love of storytelling. And he watched those and he said, yeah, he was inspired, and that's what got him into storytelling. So I can imagine that if your parents have told you stories, certainly around a campfire, you will take on that spirit. You will want to pass on these stories. Absolutely love these. I can't recommend them enough. If you've got kids, definitely read them, because the kids will get something out of it, you'll get something out of it, and these are the sort of tales that if you read them later on in life, you'll get something else out of it as well. Thoroughly recommending. They're very distinctive, and I have looked into the history of Duncan Williamson. He has written other collections of short stories, so there's a wealth of short stories that have all got his distinctive voice to them. Totally recommend these. Thank you so much for watching our review of these 2 collections of short stories by Duncan Williamson. Just to let you know, we'll be doing an imp chat about the Edinburgh Fringe, my experiences up at the Edinburgh Fringe. I did see a few fantasy shows, and as I say, I did see this storyteller, Calum, I've forgotten his last name, sorry Calum. So we'll be chatting about that. And yeah, thank you once again for watching. Check us out on all the social media, and hopefully we'll have a website really soon, if not now. Hopefully.